Okay, Boker Tov. So let's pick it up. We're on Daf Chaf Amud Aleph in Masechet Beitzah. Okay, we're dealing with this somewhat tricky sugya about dealing with smicha of korbanot. Right, we saw the machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. We're getting to a bit of a textual limit over here. We started seeing this drasha last time. So let's pick it up. We're about, say, maybe about a third of the way down on the page. There's two dots, and it says Tani Tana Kamed Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Abba. Okay, Tani Tana Kamed Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Abba. Ve'akrevet ha'olah ve'aseh kamishpat. Okay, so that's the pasuk, and the limud that we have from this pasuk is when it says regarding the olah. Now, which olah is this talking about? This is talking about the olah during the Yemei HaMiluim. So this is an olat chovah that's brought by the Kohanim. Ve'aseh kamishpat. Kamishpat olat nedava. The question is, why does it say kamishpat? What does that mean? What does that come to teach us? So he says it comes to teach us kamishpat olat nedava. That the mishpat, that the procedure of the olat chovah is going to be the same as the procedure of the olat nedava. What does that mean? Limed al olat chovah shetu'na smicha. From there we learn that an olat chovah is also required to have smicha on the animal before you offer it up, just like an olat nedava. Right? Remember, we mentioned last week, but I'll say it again, that the concept of smicha appears in the Torah regarding korbanot only by korbanot chovah, by korbanot nedava, excuse me, by voluntary offerings, right? It's mentioned regarding an olah, it's mentioned regarding shlamim, but it's only mentioned when the Torah there is talking about a korban nedava, not about a korban chovah. So this limud says that essentially when we have a case of an olat chovah, and from this you would extrapolate to every case of olat chovah, right? That when we have the olat chovah, it says kamishpat. Kamishpat means to teach you that you learn from the olat nedava that this korban is required smicha as well, just as that would. Meaning, had it not said the word kamishpat, this is the implication. Had it not said the word kamishpat, we would not have been able to learn one from the other. We would not have assumed that an olat nedava or any korban nedava perhaps requires smicha. Okay, so now the question is, who holds like this? Which opinion does this follow? Amale damalach mani, right? Which opinion is this? So he says Beit Shammai. This is following the opinion of Beit Shammai, right? Beit Shammai are the ones who say that you do not require smicha for the korban shlamim that you bring on Yom Tov. So why do we say this is to be the opinion of Beit Shammai? Is the lo gam mishamei chova mishamei nedava. Beit Shammai are the ones who do not learn, who do not derive the shlamim, the dinim of the chovah from the dinim of nedava. How do I know that? Because it's by shamei nedava it says that you need smicha, and shamei chovah, which is the ones that you're bringing on Yom Tov, Beit Shammai say you don't need smicha. So therefore, we don't learn one from the other. So why does that mean that this limit has to be according to Beit Hillel? The Gemara is now going to explain. To Beit Hillel, if you would say this is according to Beit Hillel, you'll have the following problem. Right, we say, since Beit Hillel say that you do require smicha for your korbanot shlamim on Yom Tov, so where do they learn that from? Must be that they learn the dinim of shamei chova from the dinim of shamei nedava. So if by shlamim you learn the din of nedava from chova, so why would you think that olah would be any different, right? The ibed hillel kevan the gam mishamei chova mishamei nedava, so olat chava nami, olat chova nami, lo tibaikra. It would be the same thing for the olah, and therefore you would not require a pasuk. The gamre olat nedava, because you would learn the din from the nedava, right? That's it, and therefore this is not compatible with the opinion of Beit Hillel. Okay, so Adkan. That's why it does not match up with Beit Hillel. Now says the Gemara, hang on a second. How do you know? All of this was predicated on what? On the following assumption: the Beit Hillel shamei chova mishamei nedava gamri. Meaning, what we know is we know the following. We know that the Torah says requires smicha when it comes to korban nedava. We know that Beit Hillel requires smicha also when it comes to the shamei chova. Okay, so you said until now, that's all we know, that's all that's explicit. So you said until now, that is proof that Beit Hillel learns the Shomei Nedava from the Shomei Chovah. Who says that that's where they learn it from? Maybe they learn it elsewhere. Right? ממאי דבית הלל שומע חובה משומע נדבה גמרי. דילמה מעולת חובה גמרי. Maybe, no. Maybe Beit Hillel will say you cannot learn a Korban Chova from a Korban Nedava. But they'll say it's only you look at the group of Korbanot Nedava as one, you look at the group of Korban Chovat as one. So how do I know that when it comes to a Shalmei Chova that I need smicha? We could say that Beit Hillel learned that from the Olat Chova. Okay. But how do you know that the Olat Chova needs smicha? Well, that you need alimud. That's from our pasuk, right? So again, we might debate here. Shamei Chova mishamei nedava gamri. Dilma Olat Chova gamri. The Olat Chova gufa by a crowd. The Olat Chova itself, you need the pasuk. You need the pasuk. Okay, so that would seem to indicate that this limud goes according to everybody. It works with Beit Shammai, it works with Beit Hillel, right? But the question is, why would they learn it in that way and not the other way? The Gemara now says, it says, Ma'ishna mishamei nedava de lo gamri. Right? Why do you say that Beit Hillel don't learn it again? Our question is regarding the Shalmei Chova. Why would you say they don't learn it from Shalmei Nedava? Right? Ma'ishnam Shalmei Nedava shtelo gamre. Sheken Metzuyin. The reason is that a Korban Nedava is what we call Matzui, meaning you can bring it any time you want. So when the Torah said for a Korban Nedava, for the Shlamim that you have to do smicha, you can bring it. You bring it all the time. You bring it whenever you want. It's not necessarily going to be on Yom Tov. It's not going to be right. That is a characteristic, a feature which applies to the Nedava, which does not apply to the Chovah. Therefore, you can't learn it. So hang on a sec. You'll say, but me'olat Chovah nami lo gamri. You're saying therefore Beit Hillel learn the din of the Shamei Chovah from the Olat Chovah. Well, those two are not completely similar either, because the Olat Chovah has got a specific characteristic, which is Sheken Kalil, that it is brought up, it's completely burnt up on the Mizbeach. So again, we're trying to compare. What the Gemara is essentially saying to us is you're comparing apples and oranges. Whichever case you bring it from, there's something different, there's something unique about the status of the Korban Shlamim, or of the Nedava, or there's something unique about the status of the Olah. So you can't necessarily learn the Shemei Chovah from there. So the answer is Atya Me Benayu, meaning you're right, but we actually learn it from both of them. Meaning both of them have a common characteristic, which is that it's a Korban Yachid, which is going to require smicha, and you're going to give the pircha. You're going to say, well, that's not similar because of the olah. So you learn it from the shlamim, etc. Let's look at Rashi. That's adkan. That's essentially the Gemara. And so what the conclusion of this is, therefore, that this right, we started off. Tani Tana Kamad Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Abba, this limud from the pasuk v'akrev ta'olav yasaka mishpat. That certainly fits with Beit Shammai. It also now, according to the conclusion of the Gemara, would fit with Beit Hillel as well. This is Divrei HaKol. So let's just see Rashi on the bit that we've done. A long discussion in Rashi, just explaining the sugya as we've seen it so far. So let's go back to where Rashi says v'yaseh kamishpat. Right, v'yaseh kamishpat. He says ma mishpat amur ba'olat chova. Right? When the Torah tells us about an olat chova and it says kamishpat, what is the mishpat it's talking about? He says must be the mishpat which is explicit when it tells me about an olat nedava. Vayikra kama shekol mishpatei olah u'shlamim sham nemru. At the beginning of Vayikra, right? Because we're now in the pasuk talking about the Miluim, Pashat Shmini. But at the beginning of Vayikra, we have all the dinim of the Olah and Shlamim, Sham Nemru, Ubashan Nedava Dibar Katuv. There the Torah is talking about Nedava. Tichtiv Adam ki yakriv mikem, mashma lich shirtze yakriv. Right, Adam ki yakriv mikem. When you decide to come and bring it, when you want, that's when you bring it. Tichtiv Adam v'samach yado, and there it says smicha. V'ata hay kamishpat, and over here in our pasuk where it says the word kamishpat, tichtiv be'olat chova, it's talking now about a different category in olat chova. ללמד עליה כשתטען סמיכה כשאר משפטי נדבה. To teach you this also would require smicha. Okay. אמר לרבי יצחק לתנא, דאמר לחמני, right? So then Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Abba says to the Tana, he says, what do you, right? Whose opinion is this? Ha de Yitzchak kralachi, that which you require the pasuk to teach you, v'lo gamala b'binyan av, you don't learn it by comparison, right? By binyan av, that one creates the category and then you can learn for the others as well. B'binyan av demei matzinu b'nedava she'i olah וטעונה סמיכה, אף חובה שהיא עולה כמותה תיתן סמיכה, right? You don't just say, as the Gemara is going to give the percha afterwards, you don't just say a category, you say, just as an indava, which is an olah, requires smicha, so to a chova, which is an olah, would also require smicha. Okay, we don't say that. We say we have to learn from the pasuk explicitly. So the Havamina of the Gemara is that this only works according to Beit Shammai. Right? That's what we say. Beit Shammai, De'amar b'matnitin mevien shlamim shel Yom Tov shein chova. Beit Shammai said in our Mishnah that we bring shlamim, the korban shlamim of Yom Tov, which is a chova, ve'en sumchim aleim, but we don't perform smicha. V'tamamai, what's his reason? Mishum the smicha b'vayikra aktiv v'shamein dava. Even though in the Torah it says smicha by the korban shlamim, that's a shamein dava. Right now it quotes the pasuk, Im zevach shlamim korbanov v'samach yado v'gom. V'kasavri lo gamlin chova min dava. And Shammai says we don't derive the dinim of chova from the dava. Okay, that stays. That conclusion does not change the Gemara. That's the way Beit Shammai learns. The Pachinan, and right, why Rashi derives this from the continuation of the Gemara, but the Gemara never says explicitly why Beit Shammai do not learn chova from the davar. Right? That's a good question we can ask. Why don't you learn one category from the other? The answer is Pachinan Malin Nedava Sheken Metzia B'Kol Shah Yitnadev Yavi. It says you can't compare. A Nedava is Mitsuya. A Nedava can be at any time that you want, right? Any day of the year you can come along and you can offer a Nedava and you can bring it. Tomar B'Chova Sheina El Lichsheyit Chayev. Are you going to say the same thing regarding a Chova, which is a completely different category? It's only when you are obligated in it because of the day, etc. Hilkach, lo dach smicha didu yom tov. Therefore, the smicha of the korban does not doche yom tov. Okay, now it's interesting. That line in Rashi, we're going to see, we haven't seen this yet, but the continuation of the Gemara is going to discuss, we'll see there's actually two opinions what Beit Shammai hold regarding smicha. One opinion says that Beit Shammai says you don't perform smicha on the korban on Yom Tov, but there is another opinion that says no. Beit Shammai also requires smicha for this korban. You can't have the korban without smicha. Only you would do the smicha when? Before Yom Tov. And then the machloket would be techef lishchita smicha. Right? That's going to be the next sugya in the Gemara. But it's interesting when Rashi writes lo dachya smicha didu Yom Tov. That seems to perhaps indicate that he's going like that second opinion. But anyway, so therefore he says, olat chova nami. Therefore, when it comes to the olat chova, you would also say the same thing, that it does not require smicha. Ilav deparat ba kra kamishpat. If it wasn't for this pasuk that said kamishpat, right? Lo ava ba smicha. It would not require smicha at all. The chova min davar lo gamrinan, because we do not derive the laws regarding a chova from the laws of nedava. Okay, that is Beit Shammai. And then we said, so mimai de Beit Hillel, we explain why it doesn't work with Beit Hillel. Dilma leolam chova, sorry, this is now in the answer. This is where this is not the Avamina, this is the Maskana, where we say, actually, it is compatible with Beit Hillel. And how so? We say, Dilma leolam chova min davar lo gamrinan, right? We could say that, in fact, just like Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel also do not derive the laws of Chovah from Nedava, right? Leolam Chovah min Nedava lo gamrina. Ela Beit Hillel Chovah mi Chovah gamri. But Beit Hillel learn Chovah from Chovah, right? Essentially, we're saying this is according to everybody. We're saying that everybody learns that the Olat Chovah requires smicha. Okay, so now we could ask the question, well, then why don't Beit Shammai learn? Why don't Beit Shammai learn one category of chova from another? Okay, that doesn't seem to be. We've not addressed that point. And it could be the answer is that they do require smicha, but it's just not immediately before. But in terms of Beit Hillel, it says Ela Beit Hillel chova me chova gamri, shal me chova me olat chova. In other words, Beit Hillel learns the requirement of smicha regarding shlamim of chova from the olah of chova, not like we originally thought from the nedava, but from the olah. Hilkach. Olat chova by akra. Therefore, you need this pasuk. The chamishpat liot mefolash ba. right? In order that it's explicit there. If it wasn't for this pasuk, I wouldn't know that I have smicha when it comes to korban chova, not by ola, not by shlamim, ולא בשלמים דחובה. והחמנית דברי הכל היא, and then this would be according to everybody. Okay, I'm going to say, we said no, it's not good enough. It's not good enough to say that Beit Hillel learns it from the Olat Chova because you have a Percha. You can say that the Olah is not similar to the Shlamim. So at the end of the day, what we say is Beit Hillel learns it from both. They learn it from both the Olat Chova, which we learn now from our Pasuk, and the comparison to the Shamei Nedava. And then that could answer why Beit Shammai don't learn it, because Beit Shammai don't learn Nedava from Chova. But so we say Atya mi benayu. This is the conclusion. It says Leolam. Says Rashi. Leolam matnitin detani tana divrei kolhi. Yes, this bright is according to everybody, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Afilu leBeit Hillel ba'ekra. Even according to Beit Hillel, we need the limud from the pasuk of Kamishpat. Umeachad kaimalan smicha beolat chova ma'ekra. Since we derive right smicha beolat chova from this pasuk, atulu shamei chova mitarvayu. When it comes to shamei chova, how do we learn from there? Right, the shlamim of Yom Tov, which is chova. How do we learn from there that we need smicha? We learn it from tarvaya. We learn it from both. Mishamei, and that's only Beit Hillel. Mishamei nedava umeolat chova. From both the comparison to shlamim, which are nedava. What's in common there is that they're both shlamim, and from the comparison of olat chova, what's common is they're both korban chova. One shlamim, one's olah. So b'mei matzinu. בשמי נדבה שטעונים סמיכה, אף שמי חובה שאין שלמים כמותם ייתנו סמיכה. That's what we'll say. Just as שמי נדבה requires סמיכה, that we know from the Torah, so too שמי חובה, which are also shlamim, that they have in common, they will also require smicha. Now, v'chi paracht, so you'll say, you can't compare. Ma l'shamei nedava sheken metzuyin. You can't learn one from the other because nedava always you can bring them whenever you want, and that is different to a chova. So then we say olat chova tochiach. So you have to learn the comparison from the olat chova as well. That's also chova. Sheina metzuya v'tuna smicha. So we'll say just like the olat chova, afani avi shamei chova. So too, the Shamay Chova, which are not brought whenever you want, but only when you have the Chova, so too those require smicha. But now you say there's a pircha, you can reject the comparison to the Olah as well in a different way. V'chi paracht, ma le'olat Chova sheken kalil, right? So you say, how can you compare the Shlamim to Olah? Olah is completely burnt up on the Mizbeach. So you'll say, no, Toma b'shavei Chova, she'enam kalil. Sorry, right? How can you compare it to that, to the shlamim, which are not completely burnt up? Answer is, shamei nedava yochichu. I'll learn it from the shamei nedava. In other words, I need both comparisons. Each one has something where it's not, but when I have both, so then there's a common characteristic to all three cases, and therefore I can learn, right? Chazar adin, lo re'i zeh k're'i zeh, lo re'i olat chova, k're'i shamei nedava, lidlot tam asmicha, bere'iya, שכן מצוין, דהך ראייה בעולת חובה ליתר, ולא ראי שמן נדבה, כראי עולת חובה, לדעות המסמיכה בראייה, שכן, בראייה שכן כליל, דהליתר בשמן נדבה. Again, it's just another way of explaining how each one has a different characteristic that's not common to the other one. כתיבו סמיכה, הצד השווה שבין הכוכך, תתלה, towards the end, Rashi says, ultimately, the common characteristic in all the cases is tiletam smichatan b'tam asad shaveh shebishnehem. Right, we have something common in both cases. Be'olat chova u'b'shamei nedava. Both the olah, which is chova, and the shlamim of nedava. Hatzad shaveh shebishnehem shekorban yachid v'tunan nesachim u'smicha. Both of these are a korban yachid, which requires nesachim as well as smicha. Therefore, anything which is a korban yachid and requires nesachim, shiton smicha will require smicha as well, and that is how we therefore learn. That is how Beit Hillel learned that we need smicha when it comes to the shamei chova, to lo shamei chova me'atam. Okay. So now let's go back to the Gemara. We're about halfway down the Amud. Right, we said atya mi banaya, meaning we learn it from the tzad shaveh of both cases. So now says the Gemara, V'savrei Beit Shammai Shamei Chova lo ba'u smicha. Right. what we've just proven, based on all of that, is that we've proven out how Beit Hillel learn out that you need smicha for the Shamei Chovah, which are the Shlamim of Yom Tov, but according to, and that Beit Shammai do not require smicha at all. So says the Gemara, is that correct? Meaning, I know that's been our assumption since we learned the Mishnah, but maybe not so fast, right? Is it true that all that we know is that Beit Shammai said, or it's explicit in the Mishnah, Beit Shammai said no smicha on Yom Tov. So we've been assuming that to mean until now that it means there's no smicha required for these korbanot. But says the Gemara, is that really true? Is it really true? Right? Lo ba'us right? Sabri Beit Shammai, Shamei Chova lo ba'us smicha. Can really Beit Shammai say that you don't require smicha? Vatanya. We have a braita which seems to refute this. Hatanya, Rabbi Yossi, lo nechlaku Beit Shammai Beit Hillel ala smicha atzma shetzarich. Says Rabbi Yossi, Beit Shammai Beit Hillel didn't argue whether you need smicha. Of course you need smicha. That's no question. Alma nechlaku. So what are they arguing about? Alma nechlaku atechef l'smicha shchita. The fact is, whether smicha has to be immediately before shchita. You can't have a half second between them. That's part of the right. Beit Shammai omrim eino tzarech. Beit Shammai says no. Beit Hillel omrim tzarech, and Beit Hillel says yes. So therefore, if that's correct, you could do the smicha beforehand. Look at Rashi near the bottom of the page. It says lo nechlako la smicha b'shamei chova shetzarich. When it comes to shamei chova, you need smicha. אלא כך היו בית שמאי אומרים, סומך עליהם מערב יום טוב, ושוחטן ביום טוב. Beit Shammai would say, you do the smicha on ערב יום טוב, and you do the shechting on יום טוב itself. But לא אומרים תכף לסמיכה שחיטה. They don't say it has to be adjacent chronologically. So that braita really contradicts what we've just said. So we right. Rabbi Yossi lo nechlu Beit Shammai Beit Hillel al smicha atzma shetzarich. Ama nechleku atechem l'smicha shchita shebeit Shammai omrim eno tzarich Beit Hillel omrim tzarich. So Huda amar ki hai tana. Detanya amar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda lo nechlu Beit Shammai Beit Hillel al techef l'smicha shchita shetzarich. Ama nechleku al smicha atzma shebeit Shammai omrim eno tzarich Beit Hillel omrim tzarich. In other words, we have our braita follows a different opinion than the Tanaim. So we saw the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. That's the right that we just saw that says, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel do not argue about whether you actually need smicha. Only they argue on the point of techev l'smicha shchita. And now here, in this brighter, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says, no, exactly the opposite. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda amar, right? Lo nechlaku, amar Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, lo nechlaku Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel al techef l'smicha shchita. They're not arguing whether you're allowed to do the shchita on Erev Yom Tov, and then it has to be, and then you can do the smicha, the shchita later, right? Presumably everybody agrees that when you do smicha, it has to be immediately preceding the shchita. But that's not their argument, right? What are they arguing about? That whether smicha is required, whether you need to lean your hands onto this animal before you do the shchita. Beit Shammai says no, and Beit Hillel omrim tzarech, and Beit Hillel says yes. Right? Again, the reason that Beit Shammai would say no, at the end of the day, we say that this putting your hands on and leaning on the animal is considered using the animal, which would be forbidden on Yom Tov. The question is, if it is now an inherent Yom Tov need, that it has to go together with the korban or not. So Beit Hillel always says that you can do it. There's no question of that. The question is, when Beit Shammai says you can't do it, does that mean you can't do it? You can do it prior, right? You have to do it for the korban, but you can do it before Yom Tov. Or do they say no? It's not required. It's not required at all, and that is a machloket tanaim. How we learn. Okay, so we're at the two dots. We're near the bottom of the Amud. Let's just start the next part. We have a story here in the Gemara. It says Tanu Rabbanan Maaseh beHillel Hazaken she'avio lato la'azara. So it happened once that Hillel Hazaken, talking about Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. So here we go. Right? Hillel Hazaken, he brought his olah to the Azara, lismoch alea. Okay, in order to perform smicha. So this clearly is not going to fly with Beit Shammai, because Beit Shammai say we don't bring this right. The issue here is not just the smicha, but the issue is it's an olah. According to Beit Shammai, you don't bring the olah on Yom Tov. So right. So Maaseh ben Hazaken shavio lato lazara lismoch alea b'Yom Tov. So chavru alav talmidei Shammai Hazaken. Right. So it started a bit of a commotion. And all the Talmidim of Shammai came around and said, "Hey, what are you doing? This is right." So they say, they say, what is this animal that you've brought? Can't be, surely, that you're going to bring a korban olah. The truth is that the story is a little bit strange. We know there was a machloket Shammai and Hillel, so why is it that right? Seemingly they would not accept. We see from the continuation of the Gemara that Hillel doesn't simply say to them, "No, I paskin this way and your teacher paskins that way." He actually says something else, and this is related to Parashat Shavua that we've just seen. Right? It says, "Amar lahem nekevai ulezivchei shlamim hevitia." So they see that he's brought an olah. Olah now is a male animal. Okay, so the Talmidim of Shammai say to Hillel, "What are you doing?" And Hillel says, "No, it's a female, and I brought it for a shlamim." And even your teacher agrees that we can bring the shlamim on Yom Tov, right? So the Mefarshim point out that Hillel here is not telling the truth. But mutar l'shanot mipnei shalom. We have a principle that one is allowed to change one's word for the sake of shalom. One has to be very, very careful as to when and how we apply this principle, but one is allowed to say something which may not be completely truthful, but for the sake of shalom, and that's what he was doing. That's what he was doing over here. So he told them, "No, don't worry. Actually, it's a shlamim, right? Even though it wasn't." And then it says, started shaking the tail of the animal to show them that it was a female, right? And they weren't interested in seeing. They took that, and that was enough. So V'to Yom, says the Gemara, on that day, Gavra Adam shel Beit Shammai al Beit Hillel, ubikshu likba halacha kamotan. So that day, I guess they were the majority. There were more Beit Shammai than Beit Hillel. They wanted to paskin halacha like them. We'll see the continuation of the story that says that ultimately they were able to paskin the halacha like Beit Hillel as well. So it's very, very interesting. These kind of stories in the Gemara, you see, you talk about Beit Shammai says this, Beit Hillel says this. It wasn't always so simple. These machlokot that went around, and it was quite vociferous. Not just in our days, we have very, very strong debates. But that was, of course, as we know, as the Mishnah tells us, a machloket l'shem shamayim. Okay. Adkan, have a good day, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.